All right, I'm glad a few people showed up today. All right, so let's see, healing by design. The class today is on the gallbladder and gallstones. Pretty big topic considering it's the number one surgery in America is gallbladder removal. So let's pray. Father, thank you for this time together. Would you teach us more about the body and how you designed it to function and operate, and help us to align with how you designed us to live, Lord, that we wouldn't have the sicknesses and diseases that are upon us, and we wouldn't need these surgeries and these things that we've been doing, Lord, that there'd be a better way in you. And so help us follow your ways. And just give us wisdom. In Jesus' name, amen. So liver gallbladder, pretty big topic. Personal one for me too. I've had a lot of liver gallbladder issues, pain on my right side in the liver gallbladder area. When I first got into health, that was one of the things I've worked on and continued to work on is my liver and gallbladder. I've done multiple liver gallbladder flushes. I've tried all the different flushes that are out there because there's all kinds of different variations of them. But we'll talk through that a little bit. I am happy to say that I still have my gallbladder. I know not everyone is that lucky to still have their gallbladder. Has anybody here had their gallbladder removed? No? Okay. It's pretty common. I had a very good friend of mine who had his gallbladder removed, and I gave you a picture just so you could see what a gallbladder looks like. And I have a color printer. That's a gallbladder that was removed and cut open. And so you can see that that tissue is clearly gray, rotting, necrotic, dead tissue. And it was what happened with my friend too. When they opened him up for surgery, his gallbladder literally just fell apart. It was just so full of disease and infection that there was just nothing left of his gallbladder. And it's really hard with these types of issues because we can't see inside of our own bodies. So we don't know that something's wrong unless we have pain. And usually that's our motivating factor. So even with all my personal struggles with my health, I've been able to keep my gallbladder. I definitely know I'm not fully healed in that area because I do continue to struggle with some pain in that area. So this is a very near and dear personal topic to me. And so I do want to talk about why I feel like we have so many gallbladder issues. And again, gallbladder surgery being so common. Why is it so common? I mean, everybody I know nobody here said they'd had their gallbladder removed, but I can probably safely say that everybody here knows somebody who's had their gallbladder removed. Fair enough? Yes, so super common. And I always like to look at medical literature because, there's this perception that these kinds of issues have always been a problem throughout history, and certainly not the case with gallbladder surgery. Sure, pre-1900 people had their gallbladders removed, but it was extremely rare. And today it's almost commonplace. So commonplace that the doctor gives you that old lie that, well, you don't need a gallbladder anyway. Like it's some vestigial organ that God just made just for fun that you don't really need. I've always been a proponent that everything God made is designed for a purpose, and we need it. And I know, like I said, nobody here has had their gallbladder removed, but what doctors still tell people today is that you don't need your gallbladder. And what they still tell people today is when you have your gallbladder removed, you don't need to change your diet, you don't need to change anything. They still do not recommend people make any changes. And although I'm sure there are exceptions, for the most part, every single person who has their gallbladder removed continues to struggle with their health and digestive issues. So just think anatomy a little bit. What's the purpose of the gallbladder? It's just a storage sac for bile. Where's the bile produced? Bile's produced in your liver. What's the function of bile? It's to break down fats in your body and also to break down sugars and starches and carbohydrates. And it is to help move waste through your bowels to have healthy bowel movements. So you can't have a normal healthy bowel movement without bile, which is produced in your liver and stored in your gallbladder. And so all the gallbladder is a storage sac for this bile to be secreted as needed when you eat a fatty meal or you eat some type of a fat or some type of a starch or carbohydrate, so the body can release this bile to break down your food. So it's designed to break down your food so that you can get nutrients from your food and of course eliminate the waste of that which you don't need. And so yes, there's a purpose to it. And if you have your gallbladder removed, now you don't have a storage area for bile, and you have bile being produced by your liver with no place to store it, so it's continuously dripping into your small intestines. And so people that I know that have had their gallbladders removed, and I've seen it both ways. Some of them continue to struggle with diarrhea because there's always bile being released into uncontrollably into the intestines, or sometimes the opposite. They have constipation because the bile's backed up. And so the picture I want to paint, and you can kind of see it if you look at that picture. Now, I know I have gallbladder pain, and I don't know what mine looks like because there's no way to get a good picture of it. If anybody's gone in for like a sonogram or something like that, you can go in and you can see things in your body that are calcified. So like a kidney stone or a gallstone that's calcified. I have a handout I give people called Silent Gallstones, but it talks about the pain in the area of the gallbladder. And by the way, if you just reach under your right rib cage, you can basically, you'd be pushing right on where your gallbladder is. So your liver's protected by your right rib cage, and if you just reach under your rib cage, you're pushing on your gallbladder right there. And so that's the common area of pain with people with gallstones. Pain right in between the middle of the shoulder blades. I always used to have a really sharp pain between my shoulder blades. I'd always have to go like this just to relieve the pain. Chronic stiff upper neck, shoulders, frozen shoulders. There's 100 symptoms related to having gallbladder congestion. What people have to understand is that when you have your gallbladder removed, you don't solve any problems. Because the gallbladder getting congested to the point where it's in so much pain that you have to have it removed means that whole system of your liver and the bile ducts and your pancreas have all been backed up with gunk and sludge and goo and sediment and what they call like black bile for years. It takes years and years and years for these issues to develop. And by the time it manifests into actual pain, it's been a problem for many, many years. And again, this is why when people's gallbladders are removed, they're dead, they're necrotic, they're sick, they're diseased, because this issue's been going on for years and years and years. So the question would be like, how does this happen? And I can't think of any other explanation of why people's gallbladders get diseased. I mean, I'm sure there's other reasons, but hands down the main reason is the standard American diet. I mean, why else would gallbladder surgery be the #1 surgery in America? And why would it be so common today? And why does everybody know somebody who's had their gallbladder removed? Because we grew up not thinking it matters what we eat. We grew up eating meat and cheese and bread and pizza and crackers and sweets and cupcakes. And I mean, we still eat those things today. But it was the overconsumption of these things that causes the bile ducts to get backed up and congested. And so trying to think of like how God designed the body to work and everything to work smoothly and efficiently, how many of the wrong foods and over-consuming the wrong foods in way too heavy proportions would we have to do to cause this system to get backed up to this point that it gets sick and diseased. And these stones form in the body. And how these stones form is pretty interesting, because I talked about the sonogram, and a lot of people know they have pain in this area, know there's issues in this area, and they go to the doctor and they say, oh, you don't have any gallstones. That's what happened to me. And I can guarantee them that they're wrong. But the problem with the sonogram is it only shows calcification. So it's only going to show a stone that's actually been calcified. There are calcified stones, and there's cholesterol gallstones. You guys have heard of cholesterol, and we talked about bile. And so most of the sludgy, gunky, junky, gross stuff that gets built up in this liver gallbladder area that's congested is actually cholesterol and bile. So it's never going to show up on a sonogram. It's never going to show up on any medical test that they have in there. Now the test that they do have is called a pipetta scan. Has anybody had a pipetta scan before? That's where you actually swallow radioactive dye, and they track it because you're glowing. So they actually track it as it moves through your body to see the efficiency of your gallbladder, whether it's contracting or not. And they'll tell you that you have 20% or 50% or 80% function of your gallbladder, based on this test. Those are the only tests they have that I know of. And so again, this is why so many people are getting their gallbladders removed, because by the time it manifests into pain, people are having gallbladder attacks, they're running to the hospital, and they're getting their gallbladders taken out. Now, I've had like 4, I would say, gallbladder attacks. Never been to the hospital. I just laid down flat and breathed slowly and deeply until it went away. And I can't imagine blaming anything on my gallbladder issues and my gallstones than the fact that I grew up eating pizza and drinking soda pop and eating hamburgers and french fries and junk food and candy. I mean, why else would this body that God designed get this congested and sick and backed up? If we were eating the original way God designed us, out of the Garden of Eden, eating fresh fruits and vegetables, living active lifestyles every day, it would be impossible for that to happen to your gallbladder. Because again, it just makes sense based on God's design. God didn't design a weak, sick body with organs that fail. That's not how God designed the body to work. That's what we do to it by over-consuming foods, by putting the wrong foods in our body, and too big of quantities of food. Your body can only produce so much bile and so many enzymes and the digestive juices and the things you need to break down and digest your food. Your body can only produce so much of that. So if you're constantly eating fried foods, heavy foods, burgers, fries, day in and day out, your body's going to start to build up these cholesterol stones because it does not have a way to eliminate all of the excess you're putting in your body. There's these ducts, D-U-C-T-S, ducts. It's like piping, I guess you could call it. And there's miles and miles of this ductwork in your body that's connecting your liver and your gallbladder and your pancreas and your intestines, and it's connecting it all together. And they get backed up with these stones. And so that's the myth, is that getting your gallbladder removed solved your problem. And if you want to know how far from the truth that is, a good book that was written was by a guy named Dr. Andreas Moritz. He wrote a book called The Amazing Liver and Gallbladder Flush. And in really simple terms, he explains the liver and how it works and digestion. It's just a really good, it's not a super, like, you got to be some medical doctor to understand it. It's kind of in layman's terms. And he talks about how your liver is congested with these stones. These ducts, these bile ducts, are all congested with these stones. Your pancreas is all congested with these stones. So when you get your gallbladder removed, okay, great. You eliminated the thing that was causing you miserable attacks and excruciating pain. You did not magically unclog all these other blocked bile ducts and your liver and your pancreas and all this other area that's still gummed up. So this is why people still continue to suffer after a gallbladder surgery, because they still have congestion in there. And so there's diet changes, of course, that people need to make, but the liver gallbladder flushes can help with that too. And I've had results with that, and a lot of people I work with have had results with the liver gallbladder flushes as well. So that's something that we want to look at doing. So diet-wise is probably the most important thing. And it might sound obvious, but you know what? Let me go over the symptoms first, and then we'll talk about diet. Because what happens with these, with this backed up, congested system, people have symptoms, and we don't know the root of them oftentimes. I mean, that's one thing that's hard for me to try to figure out is what's the root of a person's headaches or the root of their frozen shoulder. You know, people have different things going on, and what's actually causing it? Well, I mean, the safe answer is congestion or toxicity of some point, but it's like, what is it and where is it? And that's the challenge of trying to figure out. So here's some of the signs of gallstones. And there's a lot, so I don't want to go over all of them, but these are some of the common ones. The obvious would be the pain on the right side in the area of where your liver and gallbladder is. Diarrhea or constipation, or alternating diarrhea and constipation, which is really common. Digestive disorders. People who have problems with their liver and gallbladder don't digest and process fat very well, or oftentimes sugar. So the worst thing they could eat would be like a donut, right? Donuts, French fries, pizza, that kind of stuff that has a lot of fat and grease and cheese, and that's going to be horrible for a congested liver or gallbladder. And so people are forced to change their diets because, well, they just know if they keep eating that stuff, their life will be miserable. They might do it once in a while because it's worth it, because it's your birthday or whatever, and you'll suffer for the next day or two. But you know, in general, we have to get away from these things because we know that our bodies can't handle them. And it's because these organs are congested. Headaches and migraines, the most common place is behind the eyes. So the liver produces bile, and the gallbladder stores bile. And headaches behind the eyes, one of the terms is biliary headaches. They call them biliary headaches because there's a strong connection between the liver and the eyes. And so if you have headaches and throbbing pain behind your eyes, it's usually liver related. So again, these are just things that you want to know these things, because if you get headaches behind your eyes and you have some digestive issues, maybe you can work on your liver now, and in 5 years you don't have to wait for a gallbladder attack and have to run to the emergency room and get your gallbladder removed. So if we looked at symptoms and understood them, we might be able to prevent some things from happening. Because again, we can't see inside of our bodies, and that's one of the challenging things about health. Weight gain, or the opposite, weight loss and you can't gain weight. So if you're full of gallstones, sometimes you'll lose weight and can't gain weight, or the opposite, you'll be overweight. Yellowing, obvious jaundice. Okay, yellowing of the skin, yellowing of the eyes, that's jaundice, that's a congested liver. And we're going to do a class in a couple weeks on hepatitis and the liver, and it's going to be similar. And I'm really going to focus on the gallstones and the gallbladder flushes in this class, but the liver stuff is the same, very similar as far as the symptoms. And you can see the stuff in the eye so clearly. That's why I love the iridology. You can see the pingueculas, which are the fatty deposits forming on the sclera or the whites of the eyes. There's all kinds of liver signs that you can see in the eyes. Cholesterol rings, different things. Clay-colored stools. That's an interesting. If your stools are gray, it's a lack of bile. So that's a way that you know that your bile's congested and backed up. Nausea and vomiting. So a lot of people eat fried foods or fatty foods or heavy foods and get very nauseous or even throw up because, again, their liver and their gallbladder isn't working to produce enough bile, or it's congested in there to process and digest and break down fats properly. Hemorrhoids, intolerance to greasy or fatty foods, of course. Loss of muscle tone, hot and cold flashes. So sweating at night is a common symptom of liver congestion. People that sweat excessively or excessively hot all the time is a sign of liver congestion. Excessive heat and perspiration in the upper part of the body, that's one of the symptoms. A tongue that's always coated, white or yellow. Yellow, especially yellow, is bile. So when people got that thick yellow coating on their tongue, that's bile coming out. Vision problems, Liver spots on the body, obvious sign of liver problems and congestion. Stiffness in the joints and muscles. I mentioned this chronic stiff upper neck and shoulders, pain between the shoulder blades, frozen shoulders. I've seen quite a few people I've worked with that have frozen shoulders or chronic shoulder pain that start working on their liver and gallbladder, and it goes away. When parts of the body are frozen and aren't working, it's because there's congestion in the organs. Let's see, what else? Depression, angry personality, impatience. So people who get angry really easily are super impatient and can't wait for anything is liver toxicity, liver congestion. Depression is linked often to if you've heard the term melancholy, that's how they used to treat it back in like the 1800s and 1900s. People who had depression or melancholy, they always worked on the liver. Just shows you how important the body is, and when you have congested, sick, toxic organs, it affects your mind, it affects your emotions, it affects how you relate to other people, it reflects how you think. You know, that's one thing that the Lord's really shown me, is that we're body, soul, and spirit. And one thing that's been neat, and what I feel like I've been able to learn in my own body and help try to express to others, is that physical healing in our own body can help in healing emotionally and spiritually, and to grow emotionally and spiritually. You don't want to be angry all the time. You don't want to be impatient anymore. You don't want to be a grouchy, irritable person anymore. Cleanse your body. Cleanse your liver. Heal the inside of your body. It will actually change who you are. It'll change who you are. And anybody who's experienced it can tell you that they've seen changes in their personality from healing and from cleansing. And then another big one with the gallbladder is infections. Because again, if you look at that picture, you'll see that it's necrotic. It's dying, diseased tissue. And with dying, diseased tissue comes bacteria and fungus and mold and infectious organisms that are breaking down and eating this dead, necrotic tissue inside the body. And if you read the book I mentioned, The Amazing Liver, Gallbladder, Flesh by Dr. Andreas Moritz, or Dr. Hulda Clark did a book called The Cure for All Diseases, all about parasites and fungus in the body. She talked a lot about the liver, as they will tell you that it's really hard to cleanse the liver without cleansing fungus and mold and parasites and yeast and these organisms out of the body. Because literally parasites can just be completely entrenched in that liver gallbladder area and like have a stranglehold on the liver and gallbladder because it's so sick inside of there. So it's always good to do parasite cleansing, and we have a cleanse called the microbe cleanse we have people do, but getting rid of fungus, yeast, mold, bacteria, parasites is very wise before doing a liver, gallbladder, flesh. Or you can make it part of your liver cleanse. Always wise. So lifestyle factors. If you want to get gallstones, I'm going to tell you how to do it. Okay? Because everybody wants to get gallstones and have their gallbladder removed, right? Eating too much food in one meal. Who's been guilty of that? Only on Thanksgiving, right? So again, if you overeat food, your body can't produce enough bile and enzymes, and it can't eliminate the waste fast enough, and this stuff starts to build up in the body and congest the body. Eating too much food too frequently. Eating heavy meals late at night. And I will continue to say this, is that the number one way people sabotage their health is eating at night. It's the worst thing you can possibly do for your health, is eating at night. Now, if you're going to eat at night, eat an apple. Eat some pineapple. Okay, but eating heavy foods, eating cereal and nuts and sweets and these kind of heavy things at night will wreck your health. And think about it, it's God's design. God designed the body to get up at 5 a.m. when the sun rises, right? To work all day during the day, to eat an early meal, and to rest, heal, relax, and repair at night when we're sleeping. All of the detox organs are most active at night while we're sleeping. And so if you're eating at night and your body's got food in it, when it's supposed to be healing and your liver's supposed to be healing, your body can't heal. So I always encourage people to eat at 6, 7 at the latest. It wasn't abnormal for people to work in the field all day, starting at 5 a.m. and come home and actually eat dinner at 4 or 5 o'clock. That used to be fairly common in farm times. So overeating and eating, and that's exactly what people do, and that's what I've always done. I mean, how many times have I ordered, not recently, but in my youth, in my 20s and 30s, did I order a pizza at 9 or 10 o'clock at night and eat the whole thing with a 2-liter of soda? I mean, right? And then we wonder why we have so much sickness and disease in our culture. We wonder, like, how could this happen? How could so-and-so have their gallbladder removed? You know, and this is how we eat. And this was normal for people, eating this way. But it was never normal throughout human history to eat this way, when people lived off the land and they only ate the basic provision that God gave for them. This is normal in a culture that has 24/7 grocery stores and food at your disposal, and they're called, let me just state this, is they're called diseases of excess. These are diseases of excess. We damage and destroy ourselves by choice. We choose to be indulgent. We choose to overeat. It's just, we choose to do it. And I'm guilty, and most of us are. And so this is one thing God's working with me on, is that He did not design us to be indulgent. In fact, one of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control. If you don't have self-control, you're not operating in godly principles. And God has great things in store for us if we can learn the principles of how God designed us to live. But being indulgent and overeating and eating excessively was never in God's plan. In fact, you can read, I was just reading, I don't know if you guys have read Numbers and Deuteronomy and some of the things that happened to the Israelites when they were wandering around in the desert, but it's pretty amazing how they cried and complained about how, at least in Egypt, they had onions and leeks and food to eat, and oh my gosh, you brought us out here to die, and all you're giving us this nasty tasting manna. I mean, it's pretty crazy. And the Lord's like, okay, fine. And He sent them, I don't know if you guys know the story, but He sent them not pigeons, it was, what was the animal? Quail. He sent them quail to eat so that they could eat to their fullness. And what happened? He struck them dead while the meat was still in their mouth. For their complaining, for their indulgence, for their desire to want to have excess. Now, praise God, He's more merciful, through the new covenant than He was in the Old Testament. But yeah, God does not take lightly our overindulgence. And we're suffering for it. God might not be striking us dead right now for overindulgence, but He's allowing us to suffer with sickness and disease. How many people have gallbladder issues? I can guarantee you that there's tens of thousands of people with pain and gallbladder and liver issues that are praying for their healing. And their pastors are praying for their healing. And their church is praying for their healing. And it's not that I don't want God to heal those people, but God is allowing us to suffer in our sickness and disease because of our own choices. It's free will. If we choose to be overindulgent and do all the wrong things to our bodies, He's going to allow us to suffer with that sickness and disease. Does that mean He's a bad God? Of course not. So, I don't know how I got into all that, but so overconsumption of dairy products, especially pasteurized dairy products, but really any dairy products, they're just heavy. Heavy. Again, think of the worst things you can possibly eat. The standard American bread, meat, and cheese. Sandwiches all the time, burgers and fries, pizza. These are like the worst things we can put in our body, but this is like normal American cuisine. And you're putting this conglomeration of things in the body that it can't handle. Hydrogenated fats and oils, that's a big one. All the vegetable cooking oils and the fried foods. If you eat fast food or restaurant food, unless it's somewhere that makes stuff from scratch really clean, they're frying stuff in these hydrogenated oils. and then the white flour and the white sugar. I mean, that's what Weston A. Price wrote his book about in the 1920s. In the 1920s, where he predicted that we'd be suffering the way we're suffering today 100 years later, because we started making white flour and white sugar and taking fats and oils and white flour and white sugar and making it into all these different delicacies. It was a delicacy for kings and leaders to eat white flour and white sugar and sweets and pastries. They thought they were elite because they could eat these processed foods. It's really interesting. So the sugars, the carbohydrates, all these things will lead to gallbladder disease and gallstones. And again, that's why you see it so common today, because most all of us grew up eating these foods. There's the genetic component, which is definitely a factor. Some people are born and their parents had a history of liver gallbladder issues, or their parents were alcoholics, or their parents were African American, and dark-skinned people and brown-eyed people have more issues prone to having liver gallbladder issues. There's all kinds of genetic factors as well. And so if you're predisposed to it genetically, and then on top of it, you eat the standard American diet, it's going to hit people quicker. This is what's happening to children. Children have liver issues. Like you always say, how can a 1-year-old or 2-year-old child have a liver problem? Well, they were born with it. We know children are born jaundiced, right? Children get born jaundiced. Liver problems out of the womb. What did they used to do for jaundiced children? Put them in the sun. So the sun heals the liver. It's part of our liver gallbladder cleanse. That we're actually, it's so ironic that we're doing this gallbladder class today, because our liver gallbladder cleanse is starting Wednesday. And we're doing a class on the gallbladder today. I just think that's interesting because we've changed the schedule I don't know how many times and taken out classes, and so the timing of it's pretty cool. But so that is all the symptoms. We talked about the food. Best thing to do, and I've said this many, many times, but the best thing to do if you have liver gallbladder problems, now you will learn this through the process of trial and error. Because as soon as you start to have liver gallbladder problems, you'll be like, man, I just don't do well eating donuts anymore. I just don't feel good when I eat pizza anymore. Right? Yeah. So you kind of learn through trial and error. But the best things for the liver and gallbladder is just to eat greens, fruits, and vegetables. Now I put greens as a separate category because I'm talking parsley and chard and kale and spinach and all that good stuff. Those are all liver cleansers, blood cleansers. Those are really good. And then your fruits and vegetables. Getting away from dairy, especially. Getting away from grains and sugars. Those are the big three, dairy, grains, and sugars. But also getting away from excessive fats. And this is a challenge for people with gallbladder issues, is fats. And I can also, again, speak from experience on this, because who doesn't love cashews? I love cashews. But if I eat too many of them, I'm a wreck, because my liver and gallbladder can't handle it. So when you have liver gallbladder issues or gallstones or any of these types of issues, you have to be really careful on fat. And that includes quote-unquote healthy fat. And this is one of the biggest challenges to talking to people about health. Well, coconut oil is good. Coconut oil is good for me. Everything I hear and read about coconut oil says it's good for me. So I'm doing 4 tablespoons of it a day. But I feel miserable and I feel nauseous when I do it, but I'm doing it because it's good for me. Right? I mean, I hear this in my office all the time. It's not good for you. You don't need to be taking extra oils just to take extra oils. Especially if you have liver gallbladder issues and your body can't handle it. And we need to listen to our bodies. We don't listen to our bodies. We just do what somebody else told us to do, or we read some study, or we did some Google search, and all of a sudden, everything on the internet's true, so just go for it. No, I'm just kidding. So you have to stay away from fats. Now, the obvious stuff to stay away from would be the hydrogenated fats and oils, the vegetable cooking oils, the fried foods. Like, that's obvious. But you really want to stay away from nut butters, even eating too many nuts and seeds, eating coconut oil, eating animal fats, So think of like fatty beef and pork and that. You want to get away from all that stuff. So what I encourage, because we do need fats, and you will say yes, and you'll be right if you said, well, hey, we need fats. We need fats for our brain to work, and we need fats to produce hormones, and we need fats for healthy cholesterol, and we need fats. The best fat for your liver is olives and olive oil. If you have major liver gallbladder issues, just stick to that. Stick to olives and olive oil. Olive oil-based dressing, put some olives on your salad. You don't have to do all the rest of the other fats just because they're good for you. If you're going to do other fats outside of that, I would keep it really in moderation. And so avocado would be safe in very small portions. So like a quarter of an avocado a day, maybe a half at the most. And if you're going to do nuts and seeds, okay, but very, very small portions. If I put a few sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds on my salad, I'm perfectly fine. If I had a big old handful of cashews, I feel it, and not in a good way. And that's because of where my liver and gallbladder is at. So I just really caution people on fats, because you're not going to be able to handle them if you have liver gallbladder issues. So I hope I've made that pretty clear. Grains and sugars as well. Complex grains and sugars are going to be challenging on the liver as well, because they have to be broken down into simple sugars. The liver stores sugar in the form of glycogen for use for later, and all that has to be processed through the liver. So simple sugars would be easier on it, like fruit, that's cleansing, but complex sugars are going to be hard on the liver. So the worst thing you can eat is a deep fat fried starch, right? French fries, donuts, deep fat fried Twinkies. Somebody had one of those? I used to live in Las Vegas. They had deep fat fried Twinkies. Isn't that the weirdest thing? But anyway, I don't know what that's all about. So yes, I mean, those are the worst things you can eat. And yeah, we all ate plenty of those things, most of us growing up. So, all right. So another good thing to do is to do warm liquids. Heat relaxes and opens things up. So hot teas, warm soups, steamed vegetables. In Chinese medicine, when they're working on your liver and gallbladder, they're going to have you do warm cooked foods. In America and a lot of people, we're into raw foods, and I'm a fan of that too. So whether it's raw or whether it's cooked, you'll be okay as long as you're not doing the heavy fats and the dairy and the processed grains and sugars and things that are going to be burdensome on your liver and your gallbladder. And you'll feel better. You'll feel like a totally different person. You'll feel like the weight's lifted, your energy will come back, your life force will come back. Because I didn't mention it before, but one of the biggest symptoms of liver gallbladder issues is extreme fatigue. Like extreme fatigue to the point where people can't even hardly function. And so taking that stress and that pressure off the liver will bring people back to life. All right, so recommended foods, just make sure I covered it. Vegetables, carrots are really good for the liver. Beets, extremely good for the liver and to help with bile flow. Carrots help with bile flow. Garlic, ginger, any of your greens, lemon, all citrus really. Lemon, grapefruit, limes, all really good for the liver and the gallbladder. Apple cider vinegar is really good for the liver and the gallbladder. These things contain malic acid. Cherries do as well, that break down gallstones in the body. Anything that helps emulsify fats is going to be helpful, which would be like lecithin is something people take that's a fat emulsifier. Lemon's an emulsifier. So those are all good things to do. Foods to avoid, we pretty much talked about those. If anybody wants it, you could ask me later. I can send you a couple recipes, but I do have a beet recipe for people that are having liver gallbladder pain. And it's a beet, the juice of a half a lemon, and a couple tablespoons of flax oil, or you could use olive oil. Olive oil and flax oil are good oils for the liver. And you can eat that like almost like a little salad. So it's just like shredded beet with lemon and flax oil. And that'll actually relax the liver and the gallbladder. And then there's a flaxseed tea that you can use during a gallbladder attack. And you can just actually boil flax seeds and drink it, and that'll relax the gallbladder in case of a gallbladder attack. There are all kinds of juice combinations that are good for the liver and the gallbladder. I have some in another handout I give people, but things like apple, celery, beet, carrot, lemon, and different combinations of those are going to be really good for cleansing the liver and the gallbladder. One of the best things that you can do, and I want to spend a little bit of time talking about these liver gallbladder flushes, because if you do a liver gallbladder flush, this could potentially be the best, worst thing you've ever done in your life. Because they are not fun. And I know because I lost count. I say 15, but it's probably more like 20 of these liver gallbladder flushes. And I remember the first few of them I did were incredibly productive. I'm talking all kinds of junk and waste came out of my body. And then the last few that I've done haven't been quite so eventful. So there's other things I'm still working on or I'm missing related to that that I still need to keep working on. But the way the flushes work, and I have one on the back of the handout I gave you guys, and there's various types of flushes out there. There's a flush called the Coke flush, where people actually drink Coca-Cola as part of their flush, because Coca-Cola has a lot of phosphoric acid in it, and phosphoric acid actually breaks down gallstones. I have phosphoric acid in a liquid form that I'll have people put in apple juice and drink that. It'll break down gallstones. Apple cider vinegar will break down gallstones, so will lemon. This flush that I have on the back here, the reason you do the flush is basically what you're doing is for that day you're not eating any fat. Now I didn't put that on this flush, but ideally for a day or two even before that, you don't eat any fat at all. So maybe you just do fruits and vegetables only. Maybe you just do juicing, like just vegetable juices. Maybe you just do all fruit. Whatever you do, just fruits and veggies, no fat. And you're actually storing up bile. So your liver produces bile every day because you need it. And your body stores up bile, and your gallbladder will store up this bile. And then what you're doing is the day of the flush, you're consuming 4 ounces of olive oil, which is basically forcing your gallbladder to purge and squeeze to a maximum stress load here, and it'll actually purge all this stuff out of the system. Now, liver gallbladder flushes are controversial. Your doctor will probably think you're crazy if you tell it to your medical doctor. However, if you research it on the internet, you'll find it's one of the most popular, talked about things in natural health. And the reason is because thousands and thousands of people have benefited from doing these. So thousands and thousands of people aren't all just crazy. But there are people that would tell you that they don't really do anything. Or the olive oil, you don't really see stones coming out. It's just the saponified olive oil, just the olive oil coming out, which doesn't even make sense because it's not even the same color. So there's all kinds of naysayers out there. But for those who have benefited from doing these, it's life-changing. And I have multiple people I've worked with that had major digestive issues and pain, and they do these flushes, and it goes away. Now, it's not fun to do it. But to get all that junk out of your body and to feel better and to feel different is worth it for some people. And so the way the flush works, I'll just run you through it real quick just for fun, is you don't consume anything after 2 p.m. And up to 2 o'clock, really just encourage you to just do juices, maybe eat apples or grapefruit or just things that have malic acid in it that are good for the gallbladder and for gallstones. Cherries would be good as well. But just keep it really light up till 2 o'clock, and then no food or drink after 2 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, you're going to drink a tablespoon of Epsom salt in a glass of water. It tastes like drinking a rubber hose. I don't know how else to describe it. It's really disgusting. I've done it like 20 times, and it still makes me nauseated every time I think about it. But it dilates the bile ducts. The magnesium opens up the bile ducts, and you have to open up these bile ducts if you're going to flush junk out of your system. And so at 6 o'clock you do the Epsom salt drink. At 8 o'clock you do an Epsom salt drink. And you might have to go to the bathroom. You might get some diarrhea. Okay, great. Just go if you got to go. Then what you do at 10 o'clock is you drink this mixture of 4 ounces of olive oil and 4 ounces of juice. And it can be lemon juice or it can be grapefruit juice. And I did lemon juice for years, and it worked fine. And ever since I found grapefruit juice, oh my gosh, it tastes so much better. It is so much easier. You're shaking your head. Have you done it? Okay. It is so, yeah, it's so much better. I mean, oh, I'm so happy that I found the grapefruit juice thing. So it would be much easier on people, I think, if they do the grapefruit juice. But lemon juice, you could even use lime juice, grapefruit juice. And so you blend the lemon juice or grapefruit juice with the olive oil, and you drink it at 10 o'clock. And the reason you do all those oils at once is, again, to purge the gallbladder, to force the gallbladder to contract, to purge stones and waste out of the body. And you can use extra virgin olive oil, like a good cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil. But we also have this product called Olive Gold, which is ozonated olive oil, which the term I use is it'll supercharge your liver gallbladder flush. We just had a gal tell us last week that her liver gallbladder flushes haven't been that eventful lately. She did one with the Olive Gold. Tons of junk came out. I experienced the same thing. After I did 10, 12 flushes, I had 2 or 3 where nothing happened. I'm like, well, this stinks. I know I still got issues going on here. I did the Olive Gold. A ton of stuff come out. So it's ozonated olive oil. It's filled with oxygen or ozone. And so ozone or oxygen blows waste out of the body. There's nothing more powerful for healing the body than oxygen. And so the ozonated olive oil will immediately purge toxins and poisons and waste and parasites and fungus and yeast and mold out of the body. And so that olive oil that's going through your system, that's going right into your liver and gallbladder to cause that purge, all that oxygen is going in there too. And so that's why it helps to kind of supercharge a flush. You don't have to do that. I'm just telling you that's a way to make your flush better.
So a flush, you can do a flush in one day?
Yeah, this is a one-day thing.
Okay.
Yep. 6 o'clock, you're doing the Epsom salt drink. 8 o'clock, you're doing an Epsom salt drink. 10 o'clock, you're drinking the olive oil with the grapefruit juice, because that'd be the yummiest. You drink that, you lay down. You lay down on your right side. That's the side where your liver gallbladder is on your right side. Or you can lay down flat on your back, and you might feel some movement and some gurgling and some stuff going on. And then you also prepare, right before you go to bed, another Epsom salt drink. Another 8-ounce glass of water with the Epsom salts in it, and you have that at your bedside, and you set your alarm and you wake up at 3 a.m., because 3 a.m. is the active time for the liver, according to the Chinese body clock, 1 to 3 a.m. So people that wake up every night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., you hear that all the time. I wake up every night at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. That's liver. They have liver issues, and that's the time when the liver is more active. And so if you wake up at 3 a.m., drink that Epsom salt drink, and then that's it. The flush is over. Except for that next day might be pretty rough, because you're going to be pooping a lot and hopefully getting a lot of stones and gunk and sludge. And we have people tell us that things come out of them that look like twigs, that look like bark, that are different colors, that it's black. It's, all different kinds of colors, and junk and waste comes out of the body. And, people freak out and they think it's gross. And well, I'd much rather have it be gross in the toilet than in my body. So this just shows, again, how sick our bodies have become, and we've allowed them to become. But we don't oftentimes do anything about it, because A, we don't know about it. It's not real to us. Or B, we're not in enough pain or suffering enough. We continue in our poor lifestyle ways until we're in enough misery to change, or we're scared or whatever. So, yes?
Okay, so if we were to do this, other than it being unpleasant just to drink this stuff, and you say it's not fun, like, do you feel sick when does it make you feel sick?
Yeah, she asked if you feel sick when you're doing it. The first time people do it, I always warn people that you're probably going to be very miserable. There are some people who do okay the first time. Most people really struggle the first time. I mean, people sometimes vomit. They can't handle the oil. They just vomit it back up. Some people can't sleep the whole night. They're just miserable. I mean, I've done so many of them. I can do one of these flushes, get up the next day and go to work, and it's no big deal. But in the beginning especially, the first time especially, people really, really don't feel great. But usually they feel better afterwards. That day after, they feel pretty junky, all this junk's coming out, but then a day or two after that, they really start to feel good. And they feel lighter and they feel cleaner. And you know, it really does work. It is effective. But you do want to be cautious because you definitely might not feel good. And then you just want to do that next day, just juices, soups, maybe a salad. Keep it really light. Still try to avoid fat. Do an enema or a colonic or something to help assist all this new junk that's kind of getting flushed out of your body. And that's really it for the liver gallbladder flush. Yeah, the cleanse that the cleanse that we're doing, the 30-day liver cleanse that we're doing, I gave an option to people. You can do the liver gallbladder flush on day 30, which is the last day of the cleanse, or you can do it on day 15 and day 30 and do it twice. Because that's one thing that I did mention on the liver gallbladder flush, is you have to continue to do them. People don't know how sick and congested and toxic their bodies are, again, because we can't see them. So if you have a very productive liver gallbladder flush, and let's say you feel really good after it, praise God, do it again. Because what happens is our bodies are filled up with gunk. We just, let's say there's this much junk built up inside of our liver and gallbladder. You do a liver gallbladder flush, you just release this portion of it. The rest of it's going to start moving down. And so all these bile ducts that are blocked up, the stuff keeps moving down to get released, because we want to get that stuff out of there. The body wants to get that stuff out of there. It's just so congested it can't.
How many times a year should
you can do them every 2 weeks. I usually recommend once a month, and so you could do it once a month for a whole year. You could do 12 a year. Yeah. Oh yeah. Anybody could do it. Yeah. If you want to do it just as preventative maintenance, because I don't know how many healthy people there are these days. So I think anybody can benefit from doing these. Because again, why not? It's certainly not going to hurt anything. It's a day of somewhat miserable day. You might plan it for like a Saturday or a Sunday. You don't have much going on, but it's definitely worth it in the long run. So that's the liver gallbladder. I think it's been about an hour. So are there any questions on that? No more questions? We already asked all our questions. Super duper. What's next week? Yes.
When you have the gallbladder is already going in your body, can you live with it?
If it's already what? If it's already like sick?
Going, I mean, like rotten.
Yes.
You can still live with it.
Can you still heal it?
Can you live with it?
Can you live with it? Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
You don't know.
I feel like I'm living with mine. I don't know. I can't see.
But you don't know it. You get the symptoms, right?
Yes.
So you will have all the pains and aches that you mentioned.
Yes. Like, do I personally?
Yeah.
Yes. I still have pain on my right side where my gallbladder is. So I don't know how bad my gallbladder is. I know I still have it, and I know that it can heal, but I know it takes a lot, but I can't see it. And so that's why some people just, whatever, just go get the gallbladder surgery. The pain's gone, it's over. So
You start doing this cleansing.
Uh-huh.
You start need to either clean it out or.
oh yeah, I've definitely noticed a difference in how I feel, and a lot of it's been cleared out. But yeah, for a lot of people, it's just an ongoing struggle and battle. Yeah, you can't know for sure.
You mentioned about the pain in between the shoulders.
Yes.
Is the part of the gallbladder?
Yes, that's a common spot for gallbladder pain, is pain right between the shoulder blades. Like right between the shoulder blades. Yeah, that's a common symptom. All right, well, we'll see you next week. Thanks.